Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Strickland. I'm your host, Shwinny Poo, and this is episode 537. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Stacy. That is at StacyPan89 on Twitter. Stacy, what's up?
Doing all right, man. Victory Wednesday now. Wow, halfway through the week. Get
Well,
your waiver
no,
wire
I think
picks in.
you have to be specific about the sport here. It's not a victory Wednesday.
It wouldn't be the Knicks, so
Yes.
you have to. I'm not a Blue Jays fan or a Dodgers fan, so process of
All right.
elimination.
Well, we're not here to talk about the Eagles. I'm sure that very few people that are listening to this podcast want to listen about the fucking Eagles. We're going to talk about the Knicks. And to do that, we are joined by Poppa Lefty. That is at _the sixth man on Twitter. Lefty, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm feeling good, man. Despite losing two in a row, I'm nothing has changed in my optimism for this team. I still believe that the NBA Finals is the ultimate chalk pick, the Knicks out of the Eastern Conference. So I know that we're going to break down this game and there's concerns, but right off the bat, I am not off of that stance for this team. I don't know how you guys feel, but nothing I saw is out of the ordinary of this collection of talent last night. It's just the warts of this team. So
Yeah, I can't say that I came away too concerned in terms of the long term of what this all means for the team. And we will talk about that. Before we do that, I do have to make just a few announcements. First, that Strickland has a YouTube channel where, if you're watching this, you will know that we have that. And if you've not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel. Please comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.strict.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, you got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes My Piss Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, along with Zach Ladder, and you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. That's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, the pod that I host with YC. We're ranting about the next game more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by our staff. And you also get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it, is a podcast about the NFL that's hosted by Constantine Metricos and Desmond Novak. Their further tiers is a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and a $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and you potentially co-host podcasts alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without our sponsor, FanDuel, who are probably eagerly awaiting Adam Silver's summons by Congress on Friday, even though Congress has had a very long extended vacation recently due to other matters. But we're not here to talk about Congress or how bang up of a job they're doing. We're here to talk about the Knicks. Let's do that. So I wanted to start talking. I wanted to start this up talking about Cat because I think he deservedly look. He had an awful second half yesterday. He didn't. There's no other way to put it. He accepted it after the game. Mike Brown talked about it after the game, and it is what it is. He had a meltdown in the third quarter, and we can talk about why that happened, what the case was, what caused it. But that's the reality. It happened, and I will just say that, like, I think you can be critical of him for that. I think you can be critical of him for a lot of things. The reason I'm not that concerned about Cat is I actually feel pretty good about what's happening with him. I think that his struggles to me are a lot less concerning than somebody like Josh Hart's, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Because when I'm watching Cat, I feel like I am watching somebody who is trying to adapt to be being used in a completely different way than he was last year. The demands on him are significantly different. One encouraging thing, just as a very small example that I noticed yesterday that like had not been the case, and it's generally not been the case in his career. You saw him going into a lot of dribble handoffs. Every time he does that, I kind of like hold my breath because I'm like, please don't set a moving screen. Please don't set a moving screen. He did that actually very well yesterday until they just stopped doing that in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. But I thought that was an encouraging sign, an example, I think, of him getting to grips with the new system, what his new role is, what his new demands are. Mike Brown's been open about the fact that because Cat is going to play the 4 and the 5, he has a lot of responsibilities to learn, and that those responsibilities are more demanding on him than maybe anybody else on the roster. I think that's the same case with a guy like Yabusele, who is dealing with other stuff too. But like, I think there's a reason both those guys at various points have looked like the biggest train wrecks on the team offensively in some ways. But all of that to say, you want to get. I think it's fair to criticize Cat for whatever the hell that second half was yesterday because it was terrible. But I'm not concerned about him moving forward the rest of the season. I'm actually quite encouraged by what I've seen so far. I think.
How much of it do you think is injury related?
Sorry, what?
How much of it is injury related?
I don't want to speculate on that, and I don't care about that shit. Like, if the medical staff is playing, if he's on the floor, he's on the floor, dude. That's just how it is. What I did like, and I thought Mike Brown touched on this after the game. He talked about, and I agreed with him. And I thought the NBC broadcast. I mean, I get why they're doing it, and I kind of get where they're coming from. I thought it was very weird that throughout the first half of that game, the NBC broadcast kept talking about Cat hasn't scored yet. Cat hasn't asserted himself. Cat's not getting buckets. Cat hasn't taken a shot yet. All those things are true. I thought Cat played a great first half. And I thought the Knicks' offensive success in that first half was significantly related to how Cat was playing. Mike Brown talked about it after the game. He said you could have a great game, and that might not be reflected in your individual numbers, your stats, or whatever. And I think it's a sensitive thing, though, for a guy like Cat. And a lot of scoring, offensively based, high score type players, where it's like it's hard to just accept that maybe tonight I'm not going to get 25. Maybe it's my night to get 8, but everybody else is going to eat. And I think that is an adjustment for him. And the thing is, if you continue playing that way, and you got to look at how Milwaukee's defending him, how a lot of teams are defending him. If you keep playing that way and you keep benefiting from the looks that you're getting, from the paint being open, all those things, they have to adjust, and Cat will then benefit from that too. So I think a lot of this stuff that's going on with Cat right now, to me, is not that concerning. I actually have been pretty encouraged by how he's played defensively to start this year. And just in general, like, I don't know, like, I get that it's never great to lose games. We all want to win every game. But I did not come away from these last 2 games ready to, sound the alarm bells on Cat and start reading into his body language from a fucking, a preseason press conference he did where he talked about, he wasn't sure about his role in the offense. I think he's honest. I think he is figuring out his role in the offense, and that's a work in progress. But Lefty, I'll throw it to you. I don't know what your thoughts are on what you saw of Cat yesterday, and just kind of what your thoughts are on what you've seen of him so far this season.
I've read a couple of your tweets about stats in the first 3 or 4 games. Now we're 4 games in, and I feel like the analytics haven't played itself out. So when you get a slumping shooting team, right? Shooting some, I would say like 7 out of 10 of their shots are pretty good looks that at least they want to get. Now you could disagree whether those are good shots in your opinion. Might be a little bit of what you're used to. But I think Cat specifically, or any player that starts off slow, there's an expectation that this is going to average out over the course of 82 games. And it's a lot of recency bias, and there's not a lot of, good performances to work with. So you have to allow this guy to play like 10. And again, it's in a new system. So if we're here at the trade deadline and this product looks the way it looks, and they don't make an adjustment, and we go into the playoff stretch with how we look right now, that's a totally different conversation. But what I wanted to piggyback off what you said, which I agree with the encouraging thing, is it's about foundation. It's about philosophy. Those aren't going to translate to successes right away. Very rarely in any organization, whether it be sports, whether it be a business, the first times you do things, they are very experimental things. And you could see, Mike Brown, transparently said that this team is going to struggle early on. But the goal is that we are going to play free-flowing basketball. You have isolation players that are going to be given the basketball One, in Jalen Brunson, is his role doesn't seem to be that compromised. Now, how quick he moves, yes, like we want him to move quicker on the court. We don't want him to hold the ball for more than 4 or 5 seconds. I get that. But Karl Anthony Towns is a part of the other 4 in the offense. And I think as a weapon with Mikal Bridges, with OG Anunoby, with Deuce McBride, a Landry Shamet, all these different weapons on the team, when you don't know where that ball is going, it makes them even more potent. It makes them even more dangerous because the shots are open. You saw it, by the way, last night. It's not like last night was a complete shit show. Like, they put up 45 points in a quarter on the road and pretty much silenced the road arena in the second quarter. So I think Karl Anthony Towns, and Mike Brown spoke about Karl Anthony Towns' first half, there's going to be night. And I love that about this team because that's the highest potential of this team, is where they're not even concerned with the box score. And I hope Knicks fans don't hold this against the guy, because Jalen Brunson, you can look at the $53 million at Karl Anthony Towns next to his name. Jalen Brunson has a number that's probably should be multiplied by at least 1.8 to 2%, 200% of his contract value. He took less so that the Knicks could get more. So stop looking at the stats, man. These guys didn't come here to be MVPs. They all came here to win a championship. So if Karl Anthony Towns has one game where he has 8 points, I don't want him forcing it. I want him to be a decoy. I want him to move the ball. If they're going to run him off the line, guess what? Someone's up on the 3-point line. That means that we should be back cutting. That means that we should be making hard cuts to the rim. He should be a part of that dribble, a handoff action, right? So it's like we had a sluggish, I don't know if you noticed it, Schwinny, at the beginning of the second quarter, we had this sluggish look to our offense where Josh Hart was kind of like looking for Cat in the post, and then he didn't have him in the post, and he dribbled into traffic and he turned the ball over. And then there was a timeout, and I felt like after that timeout, guys were moving with intention, right? Guys were getting into their spots. So I think Cat was victim of not having a strong statistical first half, being counted on without Brunson on the floor, and not being in rhythm. And he's got to work with that, because, and this is one of the things that I really think with this team, that they have to find a happy medium between called set plays and playing free basketball, and knowing who's going to be the guy on the court is it going to be Mike Brown from the sideline all the time telling him to run a play? Or is it going to be a quarterback on the floor? Is it going to be a Kolick? Is it going to be a Clarkson? Is it going to be a McBride? Is it going to be a Brunson, Bridges? Who are going to be the guys on the team to say, settle down, let's get into our right spots and get a good look? Because they've looked panicked on the road the last 2 nights. But I do think like this failure is a step towards a more successful process. I don't feel like anything that we've witnessed is going to persist across a longer stretch of games. Not at all. So I do agree with you, although I do think his criticism is absolutely 100% valid, and it is unfortunately a part of his product. But that is not mutually exclusive to Karl Anthony Towns on this team. There are many players on this team on a given night that show why they're inconsistent. Unless you're talking about maybe Jalen Brunson or a Mitchell Robinson or a Deuce McBride, like guys that are very secure in their roles, on this team. Mikal could go missing for a night. We don't know. OG could completely go missing for a night on offense, right? So like a collection of this team has to come together and put aside the statistical expectations. And that's why I think Karl Anthony Towns was a little like, it looked like he was depressed because he doesn't know what his role is in his offense. But you know what? They sound self-aware, Schwinny, and they at least sound reflective, and they are taking accountability. And this is the most transparent basketball conversations that we've had from them in the last 5 years, for sure. Like, they're talking to us about everything. So I know that they're working on it, and I have confidence that they're going to be focused to fix scoring more than 111 points. Like it's not a bad thing, but like, you know what I mean? I think that they're going to be more consistent going forward.
It's pretty funny. Like just totally random. But like you just like, I remember 15 years ago, scored 111 points. It's like a great offensive game. Now it's like, that's not even close to good enough. I wanted to, you mentioned Brunson, and I think what's interesting to me, I think Brunson, Mikal, Deuce McBride, those 3 guys to me, when they obviously Deuce hopefully he's back on Friday, and prayers up for him for whatever's going on with him. Um, but those three guys to me look comfortable. Like they look like the system is great. We understand the system. We're happy doing all the system things, and we know where our buckets are coming from, and we know I think they are all comfortable. I think OG is maybe a little too comfortable sometimes. He's definitely enjoying the freedom of having a green light, and I think like these guys, a lot of them have some freedom to express themselves on the floor in a way that they did not have with Tom Thibodeau. Like we know that Tom Thibodeau had very clear do's and don'ts for everybody, in a lot of ways. And I think having that freedom is a good thing, and that will help this team get to its ceiling. But I think there are players that are more ready and able to quickly adapt to it and perform on a high level. And in the case of Bridges, I don't even think it's a question that he's benefiting from it massively. Um, Whereas I think for a guy like Towns, who he's not like a Draymond Green dribble handoff monster or something, right? This is a different type of player. This is a big time big man scorer, right? He has been a 20 point, he's 25 points per game last year. This is a big time scorer. So when you're changing now what he knew was going to be his role and how he was going to get those points, how he was supposed to deliver on the expectations of him. Um, I think that's an adjustment for him. And it's not just him. I think you're seeing an adjustment for a guy like Josh Hart in a very, very different way. And again, we will talk about that later. But even like a guy like Clarkson, there are times where I'm like, is he totally washed? And then there are times where I'm like, I kind of think he's just not sure of what he's supposed to be doing at various points. Yabusele to me, I mean, I mentioned in preseason, I think he's not playing on instinct. Yeah, like maybe he's a bit too heavy right now too, but I think the biggest thing is right now his mental processing of what he's supposed to be doing is a half step slow. Like this is a guy, if you go watch his play in Philly last year, he's a really quick decision maker. Like he was kind of instant with it. If you watch him play for France, he makes quick decisions. When I watched him in preseason, I did not see quick decisions, and I don't think all of that is on him. I think there are times you see Cat have this issue too, where he gets the ball and it's like he's holding onto it for 5 seconds, and he's like, "What are we doing here? Is somebody going to cut? Is somebody going to come here for a dribble handoff? What do you want me to do?" And I think this is an issue or an adjustment now for the bigs in the system where they have more responsibilities versus like you kind of look at how the Knicks run their offense for the past 5 years with Thibodeau. Um, 5 set screens. Like the 5 went up and set a screen for the ball handler and roll to the rim, and then they go stand in the dunker spot. And it's like this is very, very basic stuff. And let's also be fair, like there was an effectiveness to the simplicity. Certainly in the regular season and to a certain stage in the playoffs. The Knicks are striving for more. They don't feel that simplicity, and I think they're right in this assessment that simplicity will get this group to achieve its ceiling and ultimately win a championship, which is the level that they're striving for now. So I think that you have. I think I've seen people. Look, if you want to be upset, I think fans, whatever, you can be upset. That's not a big deal to me. But when I see suggestions of like, this is not working or the system is off or whatever, I just think it's way too soon for that. And quite honestly, like you mentioned it earlier, like you talked about, it's a philosophy. Part of that is like you have to let them suffer through it sometimes. Like it's like the Phil. Like maybe I shouldn't reference it today since he released his stupid ass book, but like Phil Jackson's kind of thing, right? Was he would just let his team like play. They'd be, it's like a 10-0 run. He's like, no, like you guys figure it out, and that you might lose a game because of that, but that can also be a valuable learning tool, and not just for the players, for the coach himself too. So I think that like I'm not. There are definitely things to be. Hey, look at that. Note it down. It could be a concern down the line. There's plenty of stuff for sure. But when it comes to just like the Frank Isola stuff of the world, I think that stuff is all disingenuous. It's bullshit. Because like 2-2 to start this year it's not a crisis. Like I've said this multiple times. where like, week 1 of the NFL is the biggest liar in the sport. You get the dumbest results, and none of that shit. Half the shit never matters. The first week or two of the NBA is a liar. Like this is not what's determining who's going to do anything. You look at the Pacers last year; they got off to a bad start. They were pretty mediocre through midway through the season, and then they took off. And that's kind of how they've been the last 2 years, really. I'm not saying the Knicks now are going to be the same thing, but as you mentioned, like, and Mike Brown has talked about, and this is what I thought coming into the season as well. I just think there's when you're going from playing such a methodical, half court oriented, slow style of basketball where there's limited player and ball movement because your priority is managing the possession battle in terms of not just winning the glass, right? But low turnovers. We want to get a shot up every time. And maybe not, and you're not like again, like now you're playing fast. Now you're asking guys to run the floor. Like even an open three that you're getting now, it's a little bit different. Your body has to get used to like, oh, I'm actually moving into the shot. I'm not just standing in the corner waiting for it to come to me. These are things you have to adjust. And really, I think this is where if you're a good coach, I think you have to believe in what you're trying to put in. And then I think when you feel your team is comfortable, once you're like, okay, these guys they understand what I want, then you can start tweaking stuff to account for individual players. Right now is when you need them to buy into the overall philosophy. And then when you're comfortable with where that is, that's when I would start thinking about, putting things in, tweaking stuff for specific players. They need to break out entirely of being Tibbs pilled. And like I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that very seriously. You look at that. We'll go back and watch that second half. The way they came out in the second half. They came out, and I got like, say whatever you want. Karl Anthony Towns obviously had a terrible quarter. Part of why that was occurring, right? Go back and watch the start of that half. Like, yes, did Brunson smoke some shots that he would normally make? Absolutely. Look at how he got those shots, though. That was not how he was getting those shots in the first half. He was coming down the ball. He's coming down the court with the ball, not getting off of it, dribble, dribble, dribble. That's the stuff that they are trying to break out of, right? As a group, and not just trying to single out Brunson, because other guys did the same thing too. But I do think that he's the leader, and he talked about it after the game too. He's the leader. He sets the tone. It all stems from him. When he kind of comes out in that second half, and that's the way he comes out, I think that kind of sets the tone for a little while, and they couldn't get out of it as a group, at him or as a group. So, like, I think this is them as a team. There are times where they revert to it. In basically the third quarter of each game this year, they have reverted to playing very similar to how they played last year. No, there's lack of ball movement. There was a small thing yesterday, actually, in the third quarter. If you go back and watch it, I think Bridges either got a rebound or took the inbounds pass quickly, and Brunson went over to him and was like, "Give me the ball," and Bridges was like, "Get the fuck up the court, like go, like that's a very small thing, but that is kind of what you're trying to break this muscle memory, right? Of like, oh no, this is how we're supposed to play." So I think that's like I think that's a longer process than people want it to be, and they didn't get a good preseason. Like a bunch of guys got injured, they missed a bunch of time. It was a kind of disjoint, and you had to go to Abu Dhabi, which I don't like. I hope they never fucking do that again. I think that was a joke. But like it was, I think that they're in the process of figuring it out. It's not going to be smooth. It's going to be ugly at times. They're going to have some bad nights, like they did yesterday. And like you said, it wasn't all bad. The first half, I think even the first quarter, I thought they played a good first quarter. They just couldn't make a three. And then they made threes in the second quarter, and then you see what the ceiling of the group is, what the ceiling of this play style can be, the potential of it all can be. And I think it's important to take that and not. It doesn't mean that you diminish everything that happened in the rest of the game, but that's like if you're Mike Brown, you're probably like, this is what it's supposed to be, guys. This is what it can be if we're all playing what we're supposed to be. Sorry, Stacey. I want to let you say words.
Words. No, I mean, I think I would agree with most of. I think that the assessment is pretty fair. I think it's also we have to remember that even when Tibbs started, right? Like we often said, Tibbs was an experiment, blah blah blah. He was still starting Rivers or he was playing Rivers quickly, even Dennis Smith here and there. It even took him some time to get to a rotation. So when you're a new coach, you're going to try shit, even beyond the fact that we know we have to try shit, right? That was the main. That's something we've talked about. I would imagine based on Brown's behavior and the evidence, he's going to try different things. That's going to be higher variance. That's going to have some negative impacts. So I think that is something you're just going to have to live with. And variance isn't always a bad thing. Because the fact of the matter, I mean, do either of you guys think that we have a better roster? Or would you disagree with the statement that Oklahoma City has a significantly better roster than the Knicks?
I have
in terms
some
of
thoughts on Oklahoma City.
what? In terms
Overall
of
talent, ability to win a championship, just pure roster kind of normal.
yeah. In terms of athleticism, for sure. In terms of depth, I'm gonna give it to them as well, but I also think OKC is farther along in what they want to do, and I don't think OKC is this unbeatable gem of a basketball squad. I think that
their
they were
offense
pushed to 7
fucking-
games appropriately last year in
I
the
think
finals.
their offense. Yeah, I think their offense is terrible. They've been. I don't know. Like I know they're 4-0 right now. I really challenge anybody to watch those games and tell me they think that what's going on there is like fantastic across the board. The defense will travel because they have a lot of elite defenders. They don't have a lot of weak spots to attack. The offense is look. I mean, people won't
Sorry.
say it for whatever reason. Go watch their offense and tell me it's anything different from what the Knicks did the last few years with, just give the ball to Brunson and pray.
Yeah, but I
It's
mean,
like that.
so
Look,
I
do
think-
the Knicks have anybody like Jalen Williams or Shea or Chet Holmgren? No, they don't have anybody like that. Unless
they have Brunson. But I would
Yeah.
agree with you. I think what you're saying, Shea is better, a little bit bigger, and
it's just it's a different style. It's a different style, but I do think like they were appropriately pushed to 7 games, and I really believe if Halliburton didn't get his Achilles popped, I think the whole juju momentum was on Indiana's side there. But I do think that Chet is. I know this is not an OKC thing, and I want you to finish your point because I think you're making a good one. But I do think Chet is stepping into his own as well. So I think they can get better. Also, like I would say this: Oklahoma City is the clear chalk head and above better than any other team in the league, but I do not view them as like unbeatable, if that makes sense.
yeah, I would agree with both points, and that kind of plays into what I'm saying. It's like if we played the way the thing is, there are times when Bridges will run a set or OG will have the ball, Brunson can't get it, and I was like, man, sometimes it feels to me, right, like the defense wants to take the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands. He is the best player. Why are we playing into it? But if we play that way, it's what's often called a local minimum, right? It's a one hill, so you feel like you're at the top. There's a higher hill somewhere else, right? And to like get out of that, to feel like, am I actually at the highest I can be? You have to shake things up a little bit, and they have to try different things, right? So for now, we always know we can go to a Brunson ISO. We always know we can do what we did. But if like I've been really encouraged with Mikal Bridges' playmaking. It's been up and down, but especially against Cleveland, he was making the kind of reads that I didn't think he was capable of. That was the biggest skepticism with kind of more of the egalitarian offense, because I just didn't think they had a second guy like that. Bridges has at least outperformed my expectations there. So I would say, like, if you get to the playoffs, and even if you say in the playoffs it is ISO, fine, but we have this other ace in the hole. That's the kind of, we're going to shoot a lot of threes. That's the thing that can, to your point, Lefty, like make it a lot. Why was Indiana almost able to win that series? Because they play they play a high variance style. They play the kind of style that they can win a game on any given night. And the other thing I'll say is, for me, like, I think it's as simple as this team really, I'm not saying these are superstar players, but for this team, Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride are very important, right? We do not have like Mikal Bridges can play point of attack. You ideally want him playing free safety. It's like if you had Ed Reed going from playing Ed Reed free safety to playing press corner. If you had a great press corner and you could move Ed Reed to safety, Ed Reed might even be a great press corner, but that makes your whole defense better. So that's what Deuce gives you, and it's in addition to the shooting and all that. And then Mitch is really the only proven rim protector. I like Ariel Hukporti a lot. He's still developing. But I think this really highlighted to me that those two guys are role players, yes, but much more important to the franchise. And then the last thing I want to say on Cat is I think that from what I've seen, can it work? Can you build? The guy had a career season last year. He's one of the most impactful players in the playoffs. He's made the conference finals the last 2 years he's been in the NBA. We know he's not a number one, right? He had Jalen, he had Ant before that. But there's nothing to suggest you can't really win with him. He won at the 4 playing next to Gobert. He won playing both the 4 and the 5 with Mitch without. It's one thing to suggest that there's shortcomings in his game. Fine. He's not when he was the number 1 pick, and I don't know if he was called generational, but obviously he's a very valued prospect. He was considered very special, though. I think on the average number 1 pick, I would say that he was more highly regarded by a substantial margin. Maybe
him and Anthony Bennett, right?
Anthony Bennett wasn't. That's
well, I put up a post that said Karl Anthony Towns is probably a Hall of Famer, and people hitting me with the update, from that tweet because of last night's performance. I'm like, dude, I asked ChatGPT. It's pretty valid, but anyways, but I mean, they showed over the next 3 years, if he continues 25-10, you can't keep him out. So he's definitely, to your point, he's one. Not only is he a special talent, as much as we love Jalen Brunson has to put up another 3-4 years of his current performance to get to where Cat's resume is. Unless Jalen Brunson wins a championship, and then he's Michael Jordan of New York City for the next 100 years. But
he's at least right? I don't know if he has.
And also, Mitch Richmond is in the Hall of Fame. Cat's gonna be in the Hall of Fame, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Is he playing like a Hall of Famer right now? No, but that speaks to his talent, and I think getting out of these pecking orders is going to be beneficial for the Knicks, and we're going to have to see them win, unfortunately, as a fan base, to understand how that's cool. You know what I mean? I do think that the last time the Knicks won a championship, that's pretty much how they won. It wasn't just one driving force. It was multiple guys at different points. So that has to be our identity, because if we try to roll into anybody's gym and out athletic somebody, or just be younger and more freakishly talented, we're never gonna. You saw it last night. You literally saw it last night. Giannis was the most talented player on the floor, and if we made the game Giannis versus our best, it's not going to work. But if we made the game strategic and said, hey, we're going to allow you to score twos, and we're going to run our free-flowing offense, and we're going to have 5 better players on the floor than you and just come at you in waves, then we're going to be up 71-59. Schwinny, I just to piggyback off you guys' points about the third quarter, I have no clue how to explain that habit even started, even under a coach that's so maniacally obsessed with winning games like Tom Thibodeau. If I thought I would be in the locker room with Tom Thibodeau, I think it would be like saying, first 4 minutes, we got 0-0, first 4 minutes. You know what I mean? I don't know how this team developed that habit with him, but they definitely need to shake that, because 71-59, that an alert should go off in your head. You're on the road. All you have to do is survive that first wave of, hey, we're at home, let's get back in the game, and then you can demoralize them. So I do think that goes back into the habits, and we're going to have to, unfortunately, watch them learn how to play fast. That a lot of that's hand-eye coordination. I know it sounds crazy with these star athletes, but it is different. And I want to shout out you, Stacey, for the local minimum. I just looked it up on Google. That's a hell of an analogy in my small understanding of it. But yeah, like there are parts of this picture that we don't even know exist yet. And I think that's pretty much where the excitement comes from this regular season. Whereas, most teams that are perennial playoff teams or playoff contenders, it's like, I'm a huge Yankee fan. Like, it's like, all right, Aaron Judge hit a home run in June. Let's see him do it in October. For us as Knicks fans, it's like we're watching the same characters, but a whole new stage, a whole new set. You know what I mean? And it should be exciting to see the highs, especially after now we've seen some lows, going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, you were talking earlier, Schwinn, about early season doesn't matter. Do you remember there was one season the Knicks were a garbage team? I think it was LeBron's first season in Miami, and we beat them. And maybe not his first season.
Yeah, we actually were okay that year.
Yeah, I think we won 3 out of 4.
I'm thinking of a team where maybe it was when he was in his first year in Cleveland. When we weren't like
we beat them. We beat them in like when he went back to Cleveland. We beat them in like the first or second game of the year, and I remember being like, Travis Ware, he looks like a player, guys.
Looks better for Ware, right? And so I mean, but we saw the other part of that is LeBron and Wade, two of the top 20 players, whatever you want to say. We don't have to have that debate, but you had 3 Hall of Famers. 2 of them are like pantheon guys. They started out the season 500 in the first 16 games. But I do want to go back to Cat because, what I'll say is like the guy's flaws are known, and I'll say this, right? Like, I don't want to pick on anyone, but Knicks Film School, this article today, where it was like, are we asking the wrong question? Like, no coaches unlocked Cat. I mean, he averaged, again, he was putting up well over 62 shooting, 24 and 13 last year. Pretty impactful in the playoffs, right? Certainly much better than what we saw with Randall. Made the Eastern Conference Finals. The year before, it was like 18 and 10, and he was obviously Ant's number 2, but that's fine. So I don't think that's – I will ask this, right? How much of what you're seeing is kind of making Cat the scapegoat is from a segment of fans who want to say, or media, right? Who want to say, and I'll throw this to you, Lefty, who want to say, see, I was right about Tibbs all along.
Can you expand on that question in terms of Tibbs? Like you're saying that Tibbs, it's not his fault that this is Cat who he is. Is that what you're saying? Like people are saying like you brought in Mike Brown and Cat is just going to be Cat.
Yeah, I think the most charitable interpretation is the roster is fundamentally flawed because you can't have JB and Cat together.
Yeah,
but I also think it's used to justify that. See, Tibbs was a good coach.
I have a perfect answer. I have a perfect answer for this. There's no team that's in the Eastern Conference. Like you have to look at it in the context of where we are in the NBA. LeBron James and D Wade are not out there. It's Chris Bosh. That team don't exist. The Warriors, the Splash Brothers do not exist. Right? Like none of these teams. Every team has some fundamental flaw in it. And our team, with margins to improve, was literally at Game 7, Eastern Conference semifinals. Following year, get past Boston Celtics with their system. That was a championship system. We beat them pretty handily. You can talk about Tatum. We all know with the 3-1. We went past them, and we had home court against the team that pushed the godly team of OKC to 7 games. So you can win a championship with having fundamental flaws in your roster. One team gets to go home and said, we did it right. There's little parts of a game that make you question all these things. And I think that the Knicks making that step to fire Tibbs, to at least search and see if they can get more out of this roster. I mean, to a man, how could you really be upset at that? It could go wrong. A Cat could be irredeemable in these big moments, but to act like it's not worth the journey to search to find, like this isn't a guy that's been bounced around the league and he's a reclamation project. He's been an all-star 5+ times. He's been with one franchise trying to build 1-2 punches or him being the star athlete on their franchise. And we had to pay up big time to get him in terms of money and in terms of assets. You know what I mean? So I totally denounce that, because honestly, Stacey, it really comes down to a result of an October basketball game that these conversations even exist. If the Knicks close out last night's game, or if they win against Miami and they lost last night, these conversations don't exist. People would be more than satiated with a 3-1 start to the season with 1 loss on the road, 2 wins at home. So you gotta give it some time. You got to give it some
That's
time.
Why I think
and
there's kind of bias there.
I do think Karl Anthony Towns has a. I'm sorry. I think Karl Anthony Towns does have a target on his back. He wasn't drafted here. The Knicks traded a player that was very polarizing, but on one side of it, he was beloved by a lot of people in this fan base. And he's going to have to deal with that. And on top of that, guys, he's rumored to being traded for the missing piece in Giannis. So he's in a new system. So he's going to look uncomfortable. He's like the new kid at the playground. Nobody wants to go hang out with him in Knicks Twitter or Knicks Nation. And he has to constantly prove his worth. And to me, I just think if you're feeling low on him, go watch Knicks Pistons Game 4, end of the game. If you're feeling low on him, go watch Game 3, Knicks Pacers, and remember how important those moments were to even getting you in the conversation to be realistically upset. Because the only reason you would be upset is because this team is not going to win a championship. He is a part of the reason why you fundamentally believe that this team is at least in the approximation to getting to the Larry O'Brien trophy. So compartmentalize it however you want, but this team has fundamental flaws. But a team can get close to the championship and appear in it with fundamental flaws. This is not the dynasty NBA. Unless OKC takes that next step, Wembanyama. But all those teams, to me, guys, are on the other side of the bracket. And to me, that's more than enough.
Want to get to the super chat? Thank you to Adabambo, Adajobi for the super chat. JB, McCall, OG, that's the roster. Leon, the complete team around those 3. Get Cat and Hart off my team. Go back to 48 minutes more protection. JB plus defense. What I will say about this is there's no question at all that Karl Anthony Towns has very, very real flaws defensively. We can debate the offense and whatever, but I always think I don't know how you look at the guy on offense and really complain about it. The defense, I understand complaints. The Knicks have played pretty good defense for the most part of the season. I think they're ranked 5th in defensive rating so far early in the season. Take that for whatever it's worth. Do I think Karl Anthony Towns is driving that? No, I don't think Karl Anthony Towns is driving that. But I don't feel that he is a irredeemably bad defender that you cannot win with. There are things that you can exploit that opponents can and have exploited with him. There are things that opponents can and have exploited with Jalen Brunson. There are things that opponents can and have exploited of Jaylen Brown, of Tyrese Halliburton, of, you can name great players.
LeBron,
teams
right? They packed the paint on LeBron, right?
Yeah. People have exploited these things. There's no question about that. What I will say is when they have Mitchell Robinson, this becomes much less of a concern. I also feel that having versatility in your lineups is critical. How many guys in the NBA can spread the floor at the 5 and are elite rim protectors? How many exist? Is it Wembanyama? It's Porzingis if he doesn't have fucking ass cancer or what the fuck's going on with him. It's Turner. Turner that. And Turner, Miles Turner was horrible last year when we played them in that series. Terrible. He did nothing in that series. He was terrible in the finals. This is not if we're gonna say Cat is fundamentally flawed, Turner is fundamentally flawed. Guess what? This is what the NBA is now. You don't have teams are too good. There's too much talent, and I think coaching has elevated so much now that they're ruthless in finding things to exploit, and that's why it's important to be able to adjust. It's important for coaches that can make adjustments quickly in real time as they're seeing things happen and unfold on the floor. And I just feel that it's misguided to look at a guy like Karl Anthony Towns and and just kind of almost overly focus on the negatives, which are real, and minimize the positives, which are very real and have helped now two straight teams win 50 plus games and go to the conference finals in their respective series in their respective conferences. Like this guy is clearly capable of being on a team that competes at the highest level. Now, if you want to start talking to me about, the salary cap number and what it restricts us from doing and blah, 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 sure. I mean, I think that's a fair conversation to have, but then you're having a different conversation. And I don't want to I don't want to turn this into a fucking salary cap and CBA thing, but I will be very surprised if Karl Anthony Towns is there's only one guy I think he's getting traded for. We all know who that guy is. We played him last night, and I personally am not really sure where that
I think
is.
we're going to trade him for AJ Green.
Happen. Yeah, or if that really happens.
Oh, you want to trade him for Cruz?
Yeah, exactly. But if like you're so he's looking here, he's probably going to end up declining the final year of his contract and then signing an extension at a much lower number. That's probably what's going to happen. And that lower number might still be queasy to you with where the cap is going and these guys' their ability to maneuver things that they've shown. I'm not that worried about it. Like the fact that the reason that they were able and comfortable trading for Cat is related to the fact, like Lefty brought up, Jalen Brunson's number being as low as it is, the extension he took this year solid. The fact that Mikal Bridges, you're getting 2 cheap years on his previous contract before his extension kicks in. These things give you extended runway to bring in a guy like Cat, who I promise you, if you took the nerds in the Knicks analytics department and gave them truth serum, they'd probably tell you, like, yeah, he's not really worth like this number that he's getting right now. But we can afford to do it because of these other guys who are getting paid much less than what we think, or what they're actually producing or what we project them to produce, whatever. I think that is really part of it. And Brunson's the biggest piece. Brunson is the biggest piece because he should be making, just based on his performance and what those guys and his stature in the game right now, those guys generally are making true max money. He's not, because of, the very odd reasons of how he got to New York and everything.
Does he have a no-show soon?
He might. Who knows? Well, maybe he has to aspire to that. But I want to switch gears because we've talked a lot about Cat, and I think that was a good conversation to have. Josh Hart has had a brutal start to the season. I think some of that can be explained by he missed training camp. He had back spasms, right? It was the first game of preseason. Basically missed all of training camp, missed the season opener. And he even said, I think after the Miami game, where he talked about he doesn't really have his legs under him right now. So I think the conditioning stuff is real with him. I also think that, we know his fingers fucked up, right? His fingers, it's not in a good way. I'm not sure how much I buy that affecting him, considering that he's not a particularly good or willing shooter anyways, or hasn't been in New York anyway.
He hit a three last night.
He did. And he actually had one rim out too. So maybe, that's why I also I'm not really sure how much the finger is affecting him. It's kind of where I'm at. He's probably the one guy that I've watched so far that I'm genuinely kind of worried about. Like, I'm not ready to write him off. I'm not saying it's time to, I'm not saying that, but I would be lying if I said after the postseason, the way it finished for him, to see him come in this season, it's been a rough start. I understand the circumstances behind that rough start. It's not about, to me, that he's playing bad. To me, it's really about, I don't know, something about his energy right now just seems like, I feel like he feels lost. And I also don't know that I think going from, I'm the most trusted man in this locker room by the man by the guy in charge, to I am now I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm behind Deuce in the. I think he is behind Deuce in the pecking order.
And my concern is that I think it has to do with the fact that McBride and Mitch are out of the rotation in terms of like how his role is kind of being, expressed. But there is this staggered kind of like Hart and Brunson get each other going. And there's also like this, grandfathered in Hart with the starters kind of thing going on. And then there's also this Kolick and Cat combination with that second unit as well. I just wonder, like, if there was a scenario where the Knicks could make an improvement at the deadline and you have $20 million in salary. And like, to me, I'm always looking at Deuce. I'm always looking at Mitch, and I'm just like, damn, bro, like, I wish they were extended because like, I feel like someone could play Deuce's role on this roster to a lesser extent, but you can't trade anybody for Deuce because Deuce is like getting paid $4 or $5 million. He's getting paid nothing, and nobody's going to get rid of anybody worth anything worth $5 million for Deuce. So it's like, to me, Josh makes the most sense as a guy who, if he is on the way out of the rotation, then why would I invest $20 million in my eighth man? Clearly, Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson have more of an impact on this roster. The Knicks started Landry Shamet. I think that the Knicks want to play 5-on-5 basketball. I felt like last night with Huck Porty in the lineup or with Josh Hart in the lineup, it's not Mike Brown basketball. I do think that Josh Hart has a role on this team, but if you blindfolded me and gave me Muhammad Diawara for 40 games a year to get his feet wet in this league, I think he could play 10 to 15 minutes, 6 minutes a half, and run around and make crazy shit happen. Obviously not to the level of shrewd intellect and like savviness that Josh Hart does, even though he comes with some batshit plays as well. But you saw him last night, even, through the -10, -12, whatever. He did force an offensive foul on Giannis. He did steal an inbounds play underneath the basket. Like, he has a place on this team. My thing is not for 20 million. So I'm wondering if, how much is Brunson involved in signing off on that? And how much is Leon Rose tied to, Brunson and Hart being here? And what they could possibly get. I mean, the other night, Norman Powell had like 29, 5 and 5, and he's getting paid the same money as Josh Hart. You know what I mean? So I'm just like looking at that. I'm like, damn, like, it's not like Norman Powell's like this sought after guy either. He's a bona fide rotational bench player or a fringe starter. So to look back at our roster and know that we're so close and we need as much weapons as we can get, especially guys who can play two ways. I know Josh Hart can't be an offensive threat on the floor. And now it's not like whatever, he's an energy guy, whatever. Everyone knows. The defense knows. And if you get 2 weeks to play the Knicks, scheme against Josh Hart minutes. Like, we get a chance to play 4-on-5. So yeah, I don't know if it's this is a situation where, you said you were encouraged by the Karl Anthony Towns piece. I don't know where Josh Hart's going to develop a real role in this team because they want to put up 43s. He's not a willing shooter. He shrinks the court for their dribble drive guys that are going to have more freedom. Great locker room guy, but 20 million for a locker room guy?
Tommy John commercials.
Yeah, like he's good. I'm not going to take it away. If you put,
I'm also
here's the reality. If you put Josh Hart off this team, they would struggle in some way. I agree with that. But like, is this locker room built with integrity to the point where they can move on from that and re-rally the troops a little bit and say adios and get better talent in here? I don't know if they're will. I don't know. When they say singularly focused on winning a championship, that's the type of move that I'm really like. The Tibbs thing is like, it was kind of like a little late for me anyways, but like, that was a good step. But are you actually like, are you going to break up? Like, I know they traded Dante, but Hart and Brunson, I don't know if they're willing to break that up.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing on that. I think that what I would add is he also has the kind of game that doesn't necessarily age well. He is a very high energy player, right? Gets rebounds in traffic against 6'11" guys, right? At 29, that's tough to sustain, right? And it's not like he's some super athlete, right? So, someone on the Strict Court mentioned this today. Like, if you look at Marcus Smart, he's a year older than Josh Hart, and he's been viewed as washed kind of for 3 years. It is kind of tough to sustain that, especially if you don't have the other elements of the game that you mentioned. And I think for me, it's like, if you had told me before this year that we should trade Hart for Colin Sexton or Malik Monk, I would have said no. He's a great rebounder. He's a much better defender. That defense has been missing for a while. If you're not bringing that, and if we have to maneuver, I think you made a great point, Lefty. It's like, if we have to maneuver lineups to fit you in, we can do that. But at $20 million a year, it shouldn't be that hard.
You also negatively impact like the guy we just spoke about for 40 minutes. Like, I don't know what lineups is he going to play with, really? Like the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, like bench energy squad. Like, to me, that's what you draft second round picks for. You don't pay that player $20 million.
Josh Hart was like a pretty significant and really in some ways, like an inspired move by them. I think he was critical to helping them get to a higher level as a team and getting them to where they are now. He obviously, I'm never going to diminish, the level to which he was dependent on last year was insane, but you can't take away from him that he's like willing to play those minutes, and he always plays those minutes, and he'll always, he'll be out there for as long as the coach wants him out there. He's never going to bitch out of a game. Like, that actually is something that is real and tangible and matters. But, you also have to seriously look at where this team is right now. And team, like, this is like anything in sports where a thing can work until teams are like, actually, we figured out how to stop this thing now. And teams now look at Josh Hart. He comes, like, you can watch that game when he comes on the floor in the second half yesterday. And I almost felt like this was Mike Brown. I thought it was almost intentional after a certain point to leave him out there for as long as he did. He came out on the floor. There was one play where it was the play where Clarkson drove to the lane and he like dribbled off his foot and it goes out of bounds. If you go watch that play, Cole Anthony is nominally defending Josh Hart. He, at no point in that play, when Clarkson puts the ball on the floor, is he looking at Josh Hart? Does he care about what Josh Hart is? He is standing in the paint. He's got both feet in the paint, not paying attention to Josh Hart, who's on the opposite wing. That tells you something. That tells you everything. And look at all these post-ups they're running for Cat. One, again, I think that was Brown being like, all right, you guys want to do stupid shit, I'm going to let you do stupid shit and learn from it. But they ran like whatever. It felt like it was like 5 or 6 straight post-ups for Cat. Go watch each one. Watch who they're helping off of. Watch how aggressively they're helping off him. Watch how easily they're able to send numbers at Cat and swarm the paint. Like, this is going to be the case for the rest of Josh Hart's time.
Yeah, I think that's a potential power struggle. I read a comment by Jordan Bubb in here that I agree with. It's like, is this Mike Brown's roster or is this Leon Rose, Jalen Brunson? I took a pay cut so I can get my guys in here roster. And I think there's going to be a measuring stick around the trade deadline because obviously you're always looking to improve as a front office. And if his contract was like $10 million, $9 million, I'd be like, look, man, like you literally can't get anything better. You can, but like, it's not going to happen. And also, like, don't get me wrong. In order to trade Josh Hart for a $20 million player, you're going to have to include something else in there. You're going to have to include a compensatory, some type of draft selection, or I don't know if they're willing to do that, or you know what I mean? So like, I'm looking at guys that are paid the same amount of money as him that could actually add some value to this team, like a Colin Sexton who's on an expiring deal. Maybe, the Hornets who are trying to rebuild their image would want a locker room leader, plays the game the right way, winning experience, ready to bring that team to that next step. And then we would get a guard that can attack, touch the paint, score at the rim, something that we don't really have. Or a guy like Malik Monk played with Mike Brown in Sacramento. Another guy that's a interchangeable shooting guard, one guard, something that we could use on this team to get another ball handler on this team. But it is a shame the way you're describing the spacing is in a perfect scenario. It's like, hey, if you're gonna leave that open, take the shot. But unfortunately, I have no confidence or nothing, no evidence to say like, okay, if that's a look in our offense, that's what I want, because then you're getting Josh Hart shooting 8 to 10 threes a night. If he's making the most freaking crazy part about this is if he could just hit 4 out of 10 threes a night, those technically would be great looks in our offense. But then you'd have to commit to that. He's he shot the lights out of the ball his first year, and then he just, I don't know what it was, man. But it's interesting because it's funny because him and Jalen Brunson coming out of high school and also like the recruitment, like Hart is like the clear and above NBA prospect compared to Brunson. It's not like Hart is a terrible. I don't like when people call Hart like a trash player. He's not trash. He has talent. He can score at the rim. He can dribble the ball. It's just mentally because he cannot shoot. In the way that what this team needs from him, it gets involved in his process. He would actually be a perfect player for Mike Brown's system if he could shoot the ball. But since he's a guard that rebounds, like it's weird. It's an oxymoron.
And I think the other part too, which is just a fact to me, I think he's gotten into so many bad habits that festered because Tibbs just didn't care. He did not care. He gave Josh Hart so much rope to just play his game and do what he did. And he had to have Josh Hart on the floor at all these times that, I brought this up many times, but like there's that Lakers game from last year where down the stretch, they're literally running spread pick and rolls with Josh Hart as the roll man and have Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby standing around on the perimeter watch, because that's the only way you could use Josh Hart and justify having.
But I think Jalen Brunson likes that shit. That's what I'm saying. Like they play well together.
They do. I would also say that I don't know that they do that much anymore. Like they did for sure. And I think now we're going on what?
Remember at the end of game 2, what was it? Game 2 against the Pistons where Hart and Brunson were left off on the bench together. Like, and then they came back on. Like, it's not just a friendship. Like, they are on court synergy. They play together. Like, you've seen, like, I don't know if anybody's noticed it, but I brought it up earlier with like the staggered lineups. And I don't think you'll see as many staggered Brunson Cat lineups with Mitch involved here. Or, obviously with Mitch and Deuce, I just think you'll see a shorter rotation. But it has been Hart and Brunson a little bit. It has been Kolek and Cat a little bit. More Kolek and Cat in terms of when Kolek's in the game. It's when Brunson's out. So you're not going to have Brunson and Cat out at the same time. So you're going to have Kolek kind of playing that pick and pop action with Karl Anthony Towns. So I don't know. I think if I had to bet, I think Josh Hart is here past the trade deadline. And I think he has his good games, has his rough games. But I do think if you're asking me, Schwinny, who are the top 7 players on this roster?
Oh yeah, no, he's not on it.
He's not top 7, right?
No, it's the 4 starters that we know, and then it's pick
Mitch, Deuce, and who would be 7?
I mean,
that's what I want to know.
Well, right now, I got to say Shamet right now.
That's where to me he becomes expendable to me. Because I can justify if he's a part of that 7, I can justify it.
And also,
if you don't feel like he's a part of that 7, then they gotta redistribute that money a little bit better. I'm sorry.
Well, and also like let's say you're like ridiculous Shamit, no way. Fine. They signed, and Yabusele has not played well either, right? He's been bad. They signed him for a reason. I think I would assume if you asked Mike Brown who he has more faith in or who he thinks is a better fit for his system, it is Yabusele and not Josh Hart. I think this Josh Hart thing is going to come to a head at some point this season. I agree with you. I think we talked about it. We DM'd about this. I don't think he's getting traded this year. I've never thought he's getting traded this year, but he's up for a contract extension after the season. He is now seeing his role reduced from 37 minutes a game or whatever the hell it was last year to sometimes maybe 25, sometimes maybe 19, 18, whatever. That reduction in role, like, end of the day, yeah, these guys want to win. They also want to get paid while they win.
Yeah, look at the guys who are getting that 4-year, close to $100 million role. It's like AJ Green, Dyson Daniels. Like, those guys bring something besides like energy. And like, the unfortunate part about the playoffs is if you don't have energy in the playoffs, then you're probably dead. So like, I appreciate the energy during the regular season, but if you can't impact the game in a specific skilled way, then you're going to get schemed out, and you're also negatively impacting some of our best players. So hell of a locker room guy, hell of a culture guy. I do think the Knicks would take some type of spiritual hit with him out of the locker room for sure. I just wonder if that is something that's necessary, or if that's something that maybe they can work around and still win while employing him at some obviously lesser role than he's had. 40 minutes a night. Looking back on it is crazy, but
it's also like I just think all of his flaws become more. I honestly, you could live with all this stuff if he's defending. His defense has fallen off a fucking cliff over like the last year and a half, basically 2 years almost. And there's no way to sugarcoat it other than that. Like, he's constantly, to me, like, I mean, last year by the end of it, you were just like, is this guy ever in the right place? Can he ever not jump out of the gym as soon as he sees a pump fake? Like, it was just a litany of errors constantly. Again, I'm not writing him off 4 games into the season, but in the games we have seen him play so far, I like that Miami game last night. I did not come away feeling great about the defense yet again.
Also, at his height, Schwinny, we don't really need his height on the floor to replace. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really need a 6'7". We really need a 6'7", 6'8" guy to replace OG and McHale. We don't really need Josh Hart to replace like
the argument is,
if you're going to like to the point you're making, obviously it's more extreme because Deuce he is shorter than Josh, but like Deuce is a flat out levels better defender right now than Josh Hart. Levels better. So I don't give a fuck about the size if I'm getting way better defense. And I'm sorry, the rebounding to me, I don't think the Knicks are. I don't think they fall off a cliff on the glass with Josh Hart off the floor.
Look at OG in the game against the Celtics. He grabbed 14, or maybe it was opening night. He grabbed 14 rebounds.
It was the Cavs game.
The Cavs, yeah. So like, and guys are gonna catch the ball off the rim, man. It's the nature of. Who was that guy? Who was that guy in college? And they asked him, was it Torian Prince? Yeah. They were like, "How did you?" You know what I mean?
Up with 2 hands. The reporter asked him this question, so I love that response.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, if the idea is you're trying to figure out I think really what you're trying to figure out through the course of the season is you kind of know who your 4 of the 5 guys are going to be on the floor at the end of games in most scenarios, right? You know it's going to be Brunson, you know it's going to be McCall, you know it's going to be OG, you know it's going to be Cat. Now there might be specific times where Cat doesn't go out, or Brunson is in, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Largely, those 4 guys are going to be on the floor. So what you're trying to figure out really is who are our best 5th guys in these crunch time situations, late in a playoff game, in different scenarios, require against different opponents. Who are the best guys?
Yeah, I think he's in the mix. Don't get me wrong. He's in the mix, but if you're telling me Clarkson, Shamit, Yabusele aren't on that level or can't reach that level, I think like we're just giving seniority to Josh Hart. Like I do think like over time McBride at this point has, just by nature of him shooting comfortably, has, you know, like surpassed Hart, you know, and also the double big has taken him out of the starting lineup anyways. So
right,
he's not a starter. So now you're competing with the bench.
Right, and the thing with Mitch is, okay, yeah, your spacing is not as clean, obviously, with Mitch on the floor as it is with Deuce, which is a similar problem. But here's the thing: if centers are not defending Mitchell Robinson, he is going to dominate the glass again. And then on top of that, Mitchell Robinson is an extremely high impact defender. So you get the rebounding, maybe. I don't, it's not really close to me. Mitch is just a levels better rebounder, like impact rebounder in a way that Josh Hart, as great as he is at that, is not going to be. And then defensively, it's not a comparison. So I just don't, I don't know. I've been kind of on this train since the offseason where I'm like, I think Josh Hart is fine. I think he has a role to play this season. I think that, I don't look at him and think, I think he's probably not going to be as bad as he's been the first 3 games the rest of the season. Like, he has a track record of being a solid rotation player at absolute minimum. I don't think that he's going to be a disaster the whole way through. But again, I think this is a situation that is ultimately coming to a head because there are guys that have surpassed him in terms of their importance to the team. There are guys that they're both better options in terms of Deuce McBride and Josh Hart, and Mitchell Robinson for different reasons. And he is, again, I think he's up for a contract extension next year. He's in the final guaranteed year of his contract. There is a team option after that, which, do you want to be on the hook for a 6'4" guard, an energy guard whose best skill, right, is rebounding? Is that a guy that you want to be on the hook for moving forward? Or is that a guy that you take that salary slot and you try to figure out, okay, if we have to attach a first round pick, if we have to attach some seconds.
Yeah, that's what they're going to have to do.
Right. And what team is going to give us a player that we would like to have at the cost of those assets and moving out Josh Hart? Like, I went through them. I think the Kings would give us Malik Monk. I think the Kings with Scott Perry is my little tinfoil thing going forward. I think the Hornets would be a good fit. I don't know how you feel about Colin Sexton, but this is like, we're way too far ahead. Like, I agree with you. Hart is like a miscast potential guy. I agree with leading off with Cat. Like, it's planting the seeds for at least what the fans are concerned about, and Cat admittedly so in the presser talking about, I honestly don't know my role. But like I said this on a space earlier today, I was like, every take of this early Knicks season should be like prefaced with Mitch. We miss Mitch. Every take should be prefaced that we don't have, especially Mitch and Deuce. Like, the Knicks team is like a 45 win cap team without those 2 players. I'm sorry. Like, they can't make up for what they add to our collection of 4 that we have at the top of the payroll. Like, they complement our 4 best players as good as way better than anybody else on this roster. One just shoots the ball willingly, can dribble out. By the way, it's a shame that Deuce, hopefully everything's okay with him, but it was really fun to watch. I know, like, we were talking about the Bucks game and everything, but it was really fun to watch Deuce create with the ball against the Celtics. The last game we saw him in, and he was actually taking the ball and creating with it. Didn't look like he wasn't like approaching that Nembhard level, and he's never been a traditional point guard, but at least he's, I think he's adapting to Mike Brown's system in a confident way, where other guys are kind of like, we're searching early on. So Mitch and Deuce are like so important to this team. Like, I can't justify a crash out when we don't have 2 of our top 6 players. I like, there's things to be upset about for sure, but
Like this is a 45-win team without those two players. Like they're not the team you want them to be if those guys aren't there. So
Yeah, I mean, I think this fairly sums it up, and we don't need to beat the dead horse anymore with Josh Hart. I think, look, I don't like doing it because I think he's, like you said, there is something to like he's been a part of helping set the culture. In terms of just his effort, and he's a great teammate and all these type of things. But when you hear like the stuff that Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride hinted at last year, it's like accountability and all that type of stuff. Obviously, yes, that's they want more accountability coming from the coach, but we know who that's about, right? Like we know who was not held accountable for various stuff last year in a way that was, I mean, it was obvious to all of us who watched the season play out in the playoffs. And the point with Deuce, I think, is the biggest one because it was like Deuce was out playing Josh Hart last year, and like he, whatever, the role doesn't change and it is what it is. So, you bring in a new coach. He's on a
pretty underpaid contract, and he's going to be up for extension soon as well. Right?
Yeah, he's up for extension after this year. Who's a bigger priority to the front office? I think I know the answer to that question. So we'll see how that plays out. But I want to shift gears. We can do some positive stuff here, actually, too. Jalen Brunson has been cooking to start the season. I think it's worth mentioning that because arguably he's the one that had some of maybe the biggest kind of adaptation to make from his role on the team last year and just how he's played under Tom Thibodeau in terms of his ball dominance. And kind of dictating everything. I don't know. I'm very encouraged by what I've seen from him so far. I think that I'm not worried about his lack of assists or whatever. Like I know his assists are down slightly. I'm not worried about that at all because I think his assists will be down because of how he's playing, because he's not on the ball so much. You look at a guy like Steph Curry, who's obviously the kind of like godfather of being a point guard who's not just on the ball all the time and is moving on in all these different spaces. He's never been a high assist player, right? And I think part of that is because you're not dominating the ball. So I'm very encouraged by what I've seen from Brunson so far. And that's before he's even really gotten up to speed in the way I think there's still some, he always takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out his finishing at the rim a little bit and hitting up his pull-up jumpers from the perimeter. So I'm very encouraged by what I've seen.
I haven't been a fan of the substitution pattern with Mike Brown with him, to be honest. I don't like playing guys a whole first quarter. I don't see the value in it. I think you can section the end of a quarter and the beginning of a quarter. And the Knicks don't particularly focus on closing quarters. No NBA team does for all the fuck I know. But like they all seem to like just be like, it's just 3 possessions here. And it's like that kind of dictates how you feel going into the next quarter. But anyways, yeah, I'm not a fan of how he's played the entire first quarter. And then he gets pulled at the 3-minute mark of the third quarter. And then it's like this, bait and switch kind of situation where you're just like trying to figure out when is the right time to bring him back in. But yeah, he's been on the money the last 2 games. And despite, some people kind of attaching themselves to the ball hog narrative or things like that, which there's a reason why Mike Brown is here, right? Like it's not just to maximize Cat, it's to get the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hand and have him making quicker decisions and not having a defense lock in on them and keeping the defense moving and tiring them out instead of the opponent tiring us out. And I think he's been well receptive to that. I thought he struggled in the first quarter against the Celtics. Kolek in that second unit came in the game, and then Brunson came in after that. And it was like, remember those old times when Obi would come in the game and Randall would watch Obi kick up, and then Randall would come in the game and Randall would be like, oh, that's the pace we need to play with? Well, I don't want this kid to outdo me. So like Brunson kind of, not to compare Brunson to Randall or Obi to Kolek, but that's kind of like what Brunson kind of has been taking off since that point in the Celtics game, where he's now played fast, he's played efficient, he shot the ball well, and he's kind of been a victim of, wasting these 30+ point games where I don't think his process has been flawed at all. I've enjoyed watching him go to work, to be honest. He came back in the game. He remember that baseline leaner he had to make it 101, 100. And then also just being active at the half court line, getting steals. His defense is not going to be by virtue of being an athletic, guard, but he's an intelligent dude. He knows where to be at in the right spots of the floor. So as much as impact as he can have on the game on the defensive end, he tries to do it. They try to run zone last night, and I don't like Jalen Brunson in the zone because you need guys that got to fly out and run people off the line and close out, and he's such short arms that he doesn't really like. I've watched Jalen Brunson get Jade on so many freaking times in the last 3-4 years, especially at the 3-point line, but he looks the part. I just worry, Schwinny, about him and Stacey. I worry about how many falls he takes in a season. And like you saw it last night, the start, the stop, and all this stuff. Like I never want to wish nothing on that, but like it does concern me at some level over, I not to like put a damper on Knicks Nation, but I want to be as transparent as possible. I think the window is 1 year. Like if the Knicks don't win this year, I think it becomes more difficult as it goes, unless they get a Giannis. So like, I just worry about Jalen Brunson going forward over the next 2, 3, 4 years, having all this responsibility, which is why it helps to take him off ball. Shaq's put up a great play with the set where Huck Porty set the back screen, and it was a pass into a catch and one shot. I think it was 87, 86 or something like that.
Yeah, that was a great play.
And you saw, by the way, everybody was like, remember when the Knicks were talking to the Timberwolves offensive coordinator in the offseason, Micah Knoll, whatever his name was? Micah Nori. So that was a look that they were trying to get Anthony Edwards because they were building a wall against Anthony Edwards from the top of the key or beyond the 3-point line. And it was hard for him to get to his spots because by the time he got to his spots, he's going into a double team. So what they would do is they would have these, passes into these screens where they would design him to get to his spot, into the catch, into the shot. So not only is he playing faster, not only is he playing more off ball. You've seen it with Mikal Bridges bring the ball up, but he looks the role of a leader, and he's clearly their captain. Now, one thing I do worry about this team is their overall mentality in a given game-to-game scenario, and they almost possess this, we've been here before, you know what I mean? Like, we're good, we're the team, and sometimes that they play down to competition. They come out sleeping certain games, third quarters and things like that. I do think Brunson's mild, kind of mannered, kind of like cerebral assassin level leadership, it could be a little bit more vocal in my opinion. I think he could be a better vocal leader. Obviously we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I think one of the reasons why Cat is a pleasant addition instead of Randall might ruffle some feathers here, but Cat is willing to call Brunson Cat. You know what I mean? He's like, he knows he's not the king of the city. And I think that did bother Randall at some level. Yes. Even though Randall had that moment where he hugged up on Brunson, that was really cool. I think that was the Raptors, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly celebration night. But yeah, man, Brunson looks the part, and I think he's off to another all-star starting nod. But we'll see if he is able to bring this team to the next level. So
just a couple of interesting Brunson numbers. Again, this is like super tiny sample sizes, but I think these are the signs you want to see anyway. He's taking 18% of his shots at the rim this year. That would be by far the most he's had in New York and the most he's had since his third year in the NBA when he was like a reserve guard. Prior to that in New York, he was at 15%, 12.5%, 15% of his shots at the rim. So nice to see that. He's also right now getting the most assisted twos of his career, or not of his career, sorry, but of his time. No, actually of his career. 27.3% of his twos so far this year have been assisted. That is up from, God, his first year in New York is brutal. His first year in New York, he only had 16.5% of his twos assisted, then 23% and 23.5% last year. It's good to see. His 2-point percentage currently is at 58.3, I believe. Last year it was 57.9. Sorry, this year. Last year that was at 54%, and the years before that it was about 51.5. So these are very, very early, but they're interesting to me because they kind of line up with what I feel I'm seeing, which is, look, the guy's still like making tough shots, but if you give a tough shot maker less of a stagnant picture and a loaded up defense to operate on, which I think is what's happening here, good things can happen. So as far as, his, there was a concern about is Brunson, how is he going to adapt being taken off the ball more and everything. I was never really worried about that as far as he would figure it out. I did think that it could be a longer adjustment than maybe we would want, but to see him kind of come out this way, and look, it's not perfect. I think there's still times where he gets into, ISO JB mode, but like it looks good. And I think that getting that buy-in and seeing it kind of already reap dividends for him this early in the season, look, Mike Brown has a lot of shit to figure out. His job is not easy. He's got to figure out how to get Karl Towns going and get him comfortable. He's got to figure out whatever the hell is going on with Gershon Yabusele. He's got to figure out, we talked about the Josh Hart thing. There's a lot of stuff that he's got to work through. But high up on his checklist as a head coach was probably get buy-in from Jalen Brunson, make sure Jalen Brunson's comfortable and get him going. I would say that the early returns on that are good, and that is very encouraging to see.
Yeah, I would say the platonic ideal of like a Brunson game for me. I don't know if you remember his first year here. Randall's hurt, and they're playing the Cavs. This was regular season, so not in the playoffs. And he drops 48 on Mitchell, right? And that was still at a time when something I don't think should be debated, but it is still somehow. Mitchell was considered the better player than Brunson. And he goes off for 48. He's playing very fast. They ran a lot of offense through RJ Barrett that game. Whatever your thoughts on RJ Barrett, we've seen Brunson do this, so I wasn't as concerned. I definitely wasn't concerned from an ego perspective. I think he's made that pretty clear. He's willing to do whatever it takes. Like he wants a ring, and he wants to win. We've seen him do it with Luka. We've seen him coexist with one of the most ball-dominant players in the game. And I guess the one worry a little bit during that Cavs game was, I think part of the reason you want the ball out of Brunson's hands is we saw the Pistons, the Celtics, the Pacers putting full court pressure on him and wearing him down, right? How many 8-second violations do we have in the playoffs? Like the correct number should be 0, right? And you can see that's very taxing for him, right? To just constantly getting bumped 9-10 seconds or whatever, 6, 7, 8 seconds to get across the line. It cascades and slows the possession down. He's playing faster, and I've been very impressed with how well he's held up, despite the fact that the book on Brunson right now seems to be rough him up any chance you get. And if he doesn't have the ball, it's even easier. And you could see it in that Cavs game. And I think that's something frustrating when OG has the ball, and the idea is we want to get it to Brunson, but you can't. So now OG Bridges has been better this year, but it's still, you'd rather have him touching the ball, right? But I think he's adapted as well as you could hope for. I think they'll probably even get better. That's just who he is. I mean, that is, for all the quote-unquote 1A talk, which you're not to engage in, but I think his attitude and who he is has kind of been the differentiator, because this is a guy that doesn't necessarily look like a great NBA player. he has good change of speed. He's pretty quick in a short area, and he has footwork and skill. But it's really that mentality that has taken him from being helpful on the Mavs as a number 2, then coming here. Still, even his first season until Randall got hurt, he didn't really blow up, but was willing to play that role. And like I said, I think the Brunson ISO stuff is always going to be there, and we're going to need it if we play some tough team in the playoffs. But knowing that you don't have to go to that all game for 48 minutes, that's a pretty big deal. And I think he wants that because he wants to win it. He has said it's a failure if we don't, even if we exceed expectations, if you don't win the championship or if you don't come close, it's a failure. So to that end, at least for buying in, it's not a surprise. And from the ability to do it, we know he was great catch. When Randall got traded, everyone was like, oh, his catch and shoot attempts have gone down. So he was comfortable playing off of Randall, even who's not Luka. It's encouraging, but I wouldn't say I'm particularly surprised.
Yep, I definitely going to say I do want to talk a bit about the bench. Obviously, the Knicks go out, they sign Gershon Yabusele, to a $5.9 million contract, basically 1+1. They sign Clarkson to a veterans minimum. Kolek is back. When Deuce is back, we'll see who's actually. I think Mitch will still remain the starter when both are back healthy, but we'll see. One of those guys going to come off the bench, which strengthens things quite a bit, by the way. Josh Hart, we don't need to talk about much more. But as far as I do think Tyler Kolek is pretty interesting. Lefty, you touched on this, where it feels like, maybe Mike Brown's trying to keep Kolek's minutes tied up with Cat very specifically when Brunson's on the bench. I'm not going to pretend that I think Kolek's been some stud. I do feel I thought last night, I said it, I thought he needed to play more. If the goal was just to win the game or whatever, I think Kolek would have played more or should have played more, and Hart could have played less. I think they would have benefited from that because they really needed somebody to get them into the offensive flow in that second half. And if you go back and watch the first half, like you mentioned again, when he checked in that second quarter, that's when the Knicks they were generating open threes in the first quarter too, but they really kept that flow going in the second quarter when he checked in. Do I think that's all because of him? No, but I do think there is something to how he is playing. He still struggles with ball pressure. That's a really big problem for him. That was a big problem for him in the Celtics game. And I look, for a guy who looked like he was deservedly maybe on the way out midway through the preseason, I'm definitely intrigued by what I've seen from him so far. And I almost feel like, and I don't know if this is true or not. They mentioned on the broadcast, they said that Brunson was talking to him when he was at the scorer's table to check back in the fourth quarter. And he was kind of telling Kolek that he needs to, get Cat going, feed him, or whatever the case may be. But I do think that there are times where I'm watching it and I'm like, I think it's incumbent upon Tyler Kolek, and this is a thing that he needs to accept, is it's incumbent upon him to really be more aggressive in initiating the offense consistently, regardless of who's on the floor with him, because he's never going to share the floor with Brunson, which means he is the point guard in those minutes. And I'm not saying he needs to go in and look to score 20 a game or something, but he needs to do more than bring the ball up and swing it consistently, because when he does get them into offense, I think they're really, really seeing benefits from it. I think specifically Cat might be the biggest beneficiary of that.
Yeah, he's been next in the depth chart after Malcolm Brogdon suddenly retired, and it just goes to show that Brogdon was, I guess, going to be, if he didn't retire, I guess he was going to be sitting in that role. But for me, Kolek, I was really high on him when he came out of Marquette. I like the pace he played. I like the traditional point guard skills. He kind of the Knicks have been searching for a point guard for so long, and we got Jalen Brunson, but as far as that traditional point guard, we haven't had that. And I felt like he could be somebody that would be, that backup point guard. going back to the original Miami Heat series of this regime where they lost in 6, those were the non-Brunson minutes, which we really got, torched for. And then we haven't really heard from that ever since we've kind of bolstered the roster with so much talent that it doesn't matter who's that point guard, because it's we have 4 amazing players at the floor at all times. But I do think Kolek has an opportunity, a little window here to carve out a role for the Knicks. Definitely he has to be more comfortable going downhill, shooting the floater. I'm sorry about that. Shooting a layup. He did get to the rim. He's gotten to the rim a couple times and hit contested layups. His quarterbacking on the court looks pretty decent. But it'll take some real minutes for me to see his full development. It's very difficult for him to be judged anything other than energy. So if you're looking for, like I said, I made a tweet earlier this season, he's been the biggest surprise of the season so far. And somebody shot back with he had 2 points and 3 assists. How could he be the biggest surprise? And the answer is, I expect everything out of these other players. I had no expectation for Tyler Kolek to have a role on this team. I thought he was just going to be buried at the end of the bench, and the Knicks were literally contemplating getting rid of him before training camp ended. So to see him not only step into the role but do it confidently is a pleasant surprise. We'll see how much of that is because Mitchell Robinson and Yabusele and Deuce and Hart, who have been out of the main rotation, and how much of that is Mike Brown saying, hey, we want a backup point guard at all times. We want to let Kolek kind of run the Tyler Huntley to Jalen Brunson's Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Do you have an archetype for that, the lefty point guard and things like that? So good player, smart player. He got active. He dove on the side scorers table against the Celtics the other night on Friday. He hasn't been this tremendous defensive liability. I find a lot of that talk to be bullshit a lot of times, to be honest. If you want to pick on one guy and make your whole offense about beating the matchup, go for it. I watched the Celtics kind of get obsessed with Jaylen Brown going one-on-one against Jalen Brunson, and over the course of a series, he fouled him out in game 5, but it just didn't work for them. So Kolek doesn't have to do anything. He's not going to be Gary Payton, right? He's not going to be DeLon Wright. He's going to be a nice point guard that Gary Payton, DeLon Wright. That was really fucked up on my debut on the Strickland, but
they're basically the same player.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Defensive point guards. That's who they are. But Kolek's a guy that can come off the bench and, reinvigorate our offense. And I don't think he has any issues playing with Mike Brown. Mike Brown obviously likes him. So, I think he's a good player. I wasn't impressed with last year, and I can understand at certain points. There was a point where McBride, Payne, and Brunson were all out, and we were getting DeLon Wright legacy minutes, and I was just like, what the fuck? You drafted this kid and you paid him the highest contracts for any second-round pick of all time. What gives? He's not good? You didn't believe in him? What's going on in practice? But clearly he's got some goods. How good is he? I don't know. If he also has a decent contract too, so if the Knicks can make an improvement there and they want to improve their backup point guard situation, I'm not opposed to that as well. I just think that the less guys that you can put on the floor with Jalen Brunson, that's the real issue I have with Tyler Kolek. Because I like him, but he can't share the floor with our best player. So he's replacing the minutes where I really want our player to be on the floor. So we're talking about a 6, 7, 8, 9 minute player here. So that could be huge in bridging a game, as I mentioned. Those non-Brunson minutes kind of screwed us in the past, and they've kind of high key screwed us the last 2 nights that we played. But I don't think it was Kolik's fault. Let's put it like that. I don't think it was because he played bad.
I again, like I said, I just felt like I almost like I wanted him to play more. I thought like he was bringing something to the table. I think he's like when he.
Do you think he could play with Brunson or no? You think that's like an absolute no?
I actually
Mitch maybe. I think if you have Mitch with them, it could work because you.
I agree with your point previously that you made that like sometimes this guy's a minus defender thing isn't actually as big of a deal as we make it. With Kolek, I do actually think that he works pretty hard on defense. Like when I've watched him, I don't feel like I'm watching a defender who is destructive to the team concept. Can he be picked on in isolation and in certain spots? Can you manipulate it so like he's the low man and he's going to struggle in that spot?
He's another guy that if he gets caught on a bad rotation, it's like the closeout means nothing. That's the issue.
Right. And so like those things exist for sure. I'm not opposed to trying it. Like this is kind of what this season's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to try these things. I'm not opposed to trying it because let's say you try it and they get blitzed defensively. Okay, that's, fine, great, we know that. But what if you also discover like, okay, well, they suck defensively, but actually the team is killing it on offense. Okay, so now you have some information that while this might not be viable for us now, it's really, really important that we actually get another ball handler who is viable in a construct next to Jalen Brunson, and that you have that information, and maybe it even tells you the type of point guard that you could use. So I think like there's value to trying anything to an extent.
Like the way I think about it is McConnell and Halliburton, like they can play together. I just like the idea that they can. It's not illegal. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
and you do it like Carlisle doesn't commit to that for 20 minutes a game. It's like 3 minutes here, 4 minutes here. And
if he's playing what like Stacey said, like or like he's playing well, like I'd like to see him on the floor more. But like sometimes it's like Kolik's playing well, and then you see Brunson get up, and it's like he's at the scorer's table. So it's like it's not really a merit situation. It's more like oxygen. Like I'm here to give you a break.
It'll be I do look again. I would like to see it given a chance because there's no harm in trying it. And quite frankly, like if you're willing to play Clarkson next to Brunson, I don't see the issue in trying Kolek next to Brunson. Like I just don't think that is Clarkson's not out there for the defense. Like I'm happy he got his defensive game chain or whatever the fuck. But that was a nice pity. That was a nice like good job, guy award for him. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think Kolek is. I'm not gonna say he's like a major swing piece, but I'm not uninterested in what he's shown so far. I would say that I actually would like to see him play a little bit more, be given some more responsibility. And honestly, like I said, I really felt through that game, especially in that second half when they were getting bogged down. They could have used Tyler Kolek to come in, especially like in place of Hart or Clarkson. Because I don't like Clarkson as the backup point guard. I think we're seeing some of the limitations there, especially with how his handle is right now. So I like what Tyler Kolek brings to the table. I want to close with somebody who's of more importance to the Knicks than Tyler Kolek. It is Mikal Bridges. He is playing some really, really good basketball. His first half yesterday was tremendous. What are you guys seeing from him that you like? And I guess, like, do you think it could be any more obvious that he was not a big Tibbs guy?
Go for it, Lefty.
Yeah, you were talking about the I'm sorry, I'm in a teacher group chat and the tea is spilling about these sixth grade kids. It's amazing. 6:30 at night, just can't let it go. Sorry about that. But
any future point guards in your class?
Absolutely not. Nope. No, not any. But I'm sorry. I don't know how I can get this to stop, but they're definitely going in. But I thought it was interesting that Josh Hart, you talked about Hart running that 2-man where he's coming up and setting the screen, and now that 2-man action is being ran with Brunson and Bridges. and you're seeing Bridges, cut into the paint, spray to Brunson, relocate. And I think their chemistry together has been surprisingly kind of like secondhand nature. And we've seen some corner threes from Brunson. Brunson had a corner three to start the season off of a Karl Anthony Towns pass from the wing into the corner. So like Bridges is definitely more active with the basketball. I still would like him to be like that scene in Matilda where like the fat kid is just like nonstop eating that big ass cake. Like I want Mikhail to be like that. Like I want Mikhail to be like, fuck it, I'll eat the whole cake. You know what I mean? Like I still need to see him.
I
If
think
he wants to
Yabusele
step
did that.
into that all-star level caliber player, which I think with the volume he definitely could. And like I said, it's not the pecking order of the stats doesn't fucking matter for this team. Jalen Brunson's gonna get his. He's the golden boy. He signed for less. He's going to run the offense. It is what, and he merits it. He's the best scorer on the team. But like, if Mikhail, you know what it really comes down to me. Last year we had a game against the Hawks where the Knicks were like, it was like 149 to 148, and that game drove me crazy more than any regular season game, because I was like, why the fuck is Jalen Brunson trying to one up Dyson Daniels when Mikal Bridges is being guarded by Trae Young? Like, why? And then you saw it in the Pacers series. It's like we gave Mikal these two opportunities to take care of Halliburton. All right, didn't really work. Bye-bye, Mikal. Go to the corner. We'll see you in the fourth quarter when we need bench scoring with the bench unit. And it was just like you saw him torch Derek White. I just think if you gave him the ball like every fucking possession, he would have great results. You know what I mean? He's a good scorer. And he would be more comfortable going through contact and those kinds of things. But these teams are going to run us off the 3-point line. Mikal's one of the people that's willing to kind of get busy with the ball and drive. I don't love that he doesn't go straight to the rim. I would like him to bring it and get to the foul line a little bit more. I would like him to play through some more contact, but that's not his game because he happens to be one of the best mid-range shooters in the game. Lost art, but he does it really well. But he's been, for anybody with the narrative that, Mikal, Mike Brown, Mikal, anti-Tibbs, he might have a good year this year above what it was. And I thought Kenny in the chat was talking about how, you haven't really heard much of the 5 first-round picks kind of conversation. And I think people are warming up to Mikal Bridges' value on this team. Like, yeah, 5 first-round picks is nuts for a player who's not an all-star. Like, I'm with you on that. But you haven't heard it, and I think it's for a reason. I think people understand what he can bring to this team.
6.8 rebounds per game so far for Mikal.
Oh yeah, 8 boards. I think last night or something like that. So that's the thing. Like Josh Hart is getting these boards. Someone, if he's not playing, someone else is going to pick up the rebound. So you saw with OG Anunoby with the 14.
It makes you think that some of this was probably by design, right? Because the Knicks, like, really, if you look at the difference to me between Tibbs saying Tibbs could say we want to push pace, we would like to play with pace all he wants. Okay, but how are you scheming it up? And he never really schemed anything up. The entire thing he schemed up, I think, was just like, let's let Josh grab and go. And that's like our, key way to playing fast. But that was it. And I do think, maybe some of that stuff was schemed up. I am not going to pretend that I think Josh Hart is a great rebounder. But like you said, if he's not there, can these other guys step up? Right now they have been on that front anyway.
Yeah, they just gotta figure out on a night-to-night basis where the weakness of the defense is, and nobody can have any pride about it. Like that, the situation I was talking about with Dyson Daniels and Jalen Brunson and Trae Young and those like 2v2 kind of situations. It's like nobody's like apologizing to us when they attack Brunson all night. So who on our team, if they're going to put, this is what it comes down to with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby to a lesser extent, way lesser extent, but specifically for Mikal, if you are going to send a wing defender like Asor Thompson, like Kelly Oubre, like I don't know, give me another name, DeAndre Hunter. If you're gonna send these wing defenders on Brunson, that means that a guard is now guarding 6'6" rangy Mikal Bridges. And are we going to make these teams pay for giving up that matchup, for giving up that height? Or are we going to run our offense the way it goes? And by the way, I thought Brunson sometimes, like when he gets a switch, it's weird. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't look like he had a couple switches in game 1 against Dean Wade where I was just like, so are you going to take advantage of this, or are you going to go for another switch? Like, I just feel like there are times on the floor where we have mismatches that we just don't use the strength of having 4 offensive, capable players on the floor at sometimes 5. So
No, I think he's like a very herky jerky kind of like, he sizes his guy up, sizes him up again. Like he really can almost be his worst enemy, I think, at times with some of these ISOs. Not because he's isolating, but more like how he goes about attacking him. The Bridges thing is interesting because I think you're seeing the value of getting him involved offensively, because to my eye, through 4 games, he's also looked like a significantly improved defensive player from what we saw most of last year. I would say I think the effort from him and OG on the defensive end of the floor will likely be much more consistent throughout the season if they continue to be as involved offensively as they are. And now the trade-off is for a guy like OG to not abuse the freedom that you're getting offensively and find the right balance there. I think Bridges has done a great job of finding the balance. I think he is playing really, really clean basketball. I like almost all of his shot selection right now in a way that was definitely not the case last year. He's actually, I mean, again, it's so early to do averages, but 4.5 assists per game for Bridges, that would be pretty easily a career high for him. Like, and it's not just, again, like you mentioned, it's not about any individual numbers. It's that he's getting so much of the production he's getting right now within the flow of the offense. And that's always been the type of player he is. I don't think his strength is.
But how Cat at the end of this Pistons game was like relied upon, right? In game 4. Yeah. Like, is Mikal going to be so useful in this new system to where he becomes a number 1 option late in the game?
Well,
that's my question.
He's done it before. The Spurs game last year on Christmas. I mean, he's shown that ability.
The Blazers game.
Yeah, but that was without our
and
guy.
It's a different. I think he's definitely a viable option if you're going to play this way. I think he's comfortable too. Like he's happy. Honestly, like that. It sounds so ridiculous to say that. And I know he talked like before the season started, right? He mentioned that, I love the fans, I love everything. And I'm like, man, if you love the fans, you're a better man than me, because I would have fucking hated the fans last year if I was Mikal Bridges. But he's happy right now. Like I think you can see him feel comfortable on the floor. He exudes confidence in a way last year where it felt like the entire season he's feeling things out and he's not trying to do too much, maybe because
I'm not gonna lie. There was parts of last year where I was like, I'd rather have Dante than Mikal. Like, there were definitely parts of that season.
No, and
just for the 3-point shooting.
And it wouldn't have been wrong. And you were not on an island on that. A lot of people felt that way. But this is the player. Like what you're seeing from Bridges right now. This is 1, that's the player they envisioned when they traded for him. 2, this is part of why you made the coaching change, right? We talked about Brunson earlier, getting his offense in a different way than he has. Now you're seeing what Mike Brown has been able to get out of Mikal Bridges. The job is not complete, right? He has to get more out of everybody else, or not everybody else, but a guy like Cat, whatever. We don't have to go through it. That's real. I also want to get back to, which is one thing you said. You said that the individual numbers shouldn't matter for most of these guys. I 100% agree with that. But there are 2 guys that, to me, they're allowed to care about the individual numbers. Mitchell Robinson is allowed to care. It won't matter because he can't really do much with the ball anyways, and we know what he's going to do. He's going to get a lot of rebounds, and he's going to get some shots at the rim, and that'll be great. It also matters for Deuce McBride. I'm not worried about Deuce though, because he's going to play more than he ever did under Tibbs consistently, and he's more involved than he was under Tibbs' offense than he ever
the
was under
ball's
Tibbs.
moving side to side.
And
way more.
and the other thing that I think you're already seeing is there were times last year Deuce comes in the game and he's like, you would still have Bridges guarding the point of attack, or OG defending the point of attack. And I think what you're seeing with Brown is he is empowering a guy like Deuce. It's like, hey, Deuce, you're a key defender for me. You're not just a good defender, you're a key defender for me. And I think that empowerment of certain players is necessary to get more out of them. And like, I'm not worried about him looking for his numbers because I don't think he's really wired that way. He just wanted a chance to play more, and he deserved to play more than he did last year because we all saw we know what the numbers were with him on the court, with him off the court. The Knicks benefit from having him on the floor. He's consistently proven to be a good foil for Jalen Brunson. He alleviates the defensive workload for guys like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. And guess what? Like, you know what? If you're gonna tell me that Brunson and Cat together it's a really tough to have, a good defense. Yeah, well then put your best defenders on the floor next to those guys. And Deuce is one of your best defenders. He's at worst he's your fourth best defender. At worst. And he is their best point of attack defender in a way that nobody else is.
Who would be the third? I'm assuming Mitch, OG. Are you saying Bridges, you could say?
Yeah. I mean, he's like that. That's it. There's really nobody else you're going to look at on the roster and be like, this guy, way better on defense than Deuce. Maybe Yabusele will get there after it cuts down a little bit.
Yeah, I had a preseason prediction before all this Mitch Gate injury nonsense, but I thought Mitch had a real potential to average a double-double.
Yeah, possible.
They're playing fast, up and down, a lot of putbacks, alley-oops, things like that. But
you know what number I want him to pay attention to? It's a percentage.
Free throw percentage. Yeah. If he can make a couple. No, we'll see what happens. We need Mitch back. I think most important thing is to make sure he's healthy at the end of the season. Until then, we just need to manage it. But
by the way, I think I just wanted to throw this out here, Schwinny. There's like this idea that people think the Knicks are strategically lying to their fans. I do think they're strategically lying, but I don't think they're lying to us. I don't think they care about us. I think they're strategically talking about his injury status to protect other concepts. So I don't know. I've heard in the back channels that a lot of this load management is mutual on Mitchell Robinson's side. I don't know how true it is, but people come, people come to you with information. You can't validate it. People come to me with information, and they're saying that Mitch is protecting himself as well with the ankle situation. All the other situation could be that the Knicks are, being mum on his injury status for trade, for trade talks and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I don't really buy that. I think he's like in the Deuce situation where you could trade him. Who are you going to get at the number that he makes that is even close to moving the needle when you get to playoff time like he does? This is a guy who has won playoff series for you. Like that matters more than anything.
I'm cool.
So we'll see where.
I'm cool. Take as much time as you need. Like, I think, I can handle it. Without. I do think Huck Porty has been kind of ass. But
he was bad last night. For sure.
Yeah,
he was terrible last night.
At the end of the day, certain matchups the Knicks are not going to be able to get away with not having a rim protecting center. Last night, Giannis and Turner aren't your traditional like banging, bruising big men, because they do operate on the perimeter a lot of the times. But the Knicks did struggle because they didn't have a backup to Karl Anthony Towns that could just jump on the floor and provide. And I think Yabusele is how they envision him. And I know he's getting used to playing the 5. You can call him a 4 with Cat at the 5. It doesn't really matter to me, but I think you're right. I think one of the most interesting parts about this podcast was your core, like you're kind of like grouping in a couple players at the big position that prototypically, and not that Yabusele was here last year, but the Knicks are getting used to using their 5, their center as a real like catch, pass, shoot, dribble, move with fluidity, and they're not used to doing that. So, but I think he has the I think he has the talent to do it, but I want Yabu to do well. I'm buying stock on him. He's getting killed on the timeline right now. He's a nice little engagement, free for all with the context to why people think he's not playing well because of his weight. I don't buy that either, but we'll see. I think he'll end up being a lovable Knick sooner than later.
Yeah, and two things I'll mention on Yabu real quick. One, we have seen one player kind of be a little bit of that hub in Hartenstein, right? We saw him have good
That's
chemistry.
a good point.
So I do think some of these players have that ability. I think with Brunson and Hartenstein, it still was more Brunson heavy, but definitely with the bench, you saw that. And Schwinn has talked about this. You can elaborate if you want, Schwinn, but Yabu did play well into the summer, right? And he was playing FIBA, and so he had to take some time off. So it could just be that he's a couple weeks behind. Schwinn has talked about this as well. Like, he's a guy of once he knows his role, he makes very good, quick decisions. But he's not at that point. It's a new team, new teammates. And if he's like a couple weeks behind just because he took some time off, that could delay, but, I wouldn't panic yet. Right? So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's not like what we've seen of him in a Knicks jersey is the most encouraging thing ever. So I get why anybody's concerned about it, but I'm so pretty optimistic about what he ends up being for this team. And yeah, like I kind of imagine him becoming kind of like a cult hero at some point this season, because I can see him coming up with like big moments in some random spot that the Knicks need. So we'll see how it ends up for him. I think we'll wrap up here. Lefty, thank you so much for coming on, man.
I wanted to say to your audience, man, like I really appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate your platform and how much work you put in. Everybody there at the Strickland, you're definitely somebody that inspires others to pick up in their individual kind of journey in terms of content creation. And you're a staple in this community, and I'm really honored to have this opportunity to share my insight with you guys. And I really appreciate you for bringing me on. It's not lost on me, and I'm very humbled by it. And I really wanted to thank you in front of everybody for allowing me to give my takes. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, and absolutely, we'll do it again. Let people know where they can find you, and you have a new pod if you want to plug that too.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at the 6 Man. I'm not even sure how it works out. It was a secondary account. I like the movie The 6 Man, A&K all the way, great movie. But I also feel like we're the 6 Man in Knicks Twitter. I feel like we're a part of the team in a very interesting way. But you can search me up on YouTube, Your Knicks, and you'll find Your Knicks podcast that I am giving day-to-day kind of reactions, recaps, breaking news, all trades, rumors, and just opinions about the team. I try to keep my videos, between 8 to 12, 8 to 15 minutes, give you a little quick fix of my opinions, and we move forward. But other than that, I'm outside. I'm on Twitter. And if there's anything that you guys ever need on a personal level, you can always feel free to reach me in the DM, and we can build that way.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on, Lefty. Appreciate it. Stacy, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Nothing to plug. It's great to see someone using a basketball movie as their Twitter handle. like me. So appreciate that. Second favorite Marlon Wayans basketball movie. I got to go with Above the Rim, but I like The Sixth Man.
By the way, him was awful. Like, terrible movie.
I have not seen it. I'm not
Yeah,
looking forward.
my wife was like, Jordan Peele, and I'm like, that brand is not the same brand you think it is. He's not as involved. But yeah.
I have nothing to plug, so I will plug all the work over at Strickland. Check that out. Check out Lefty's Pod. Thank you to everybody for the comments. Thank you for the super chat. We will be recording. I think me and Prez will be recording tomorrow, so that pod should be out Friday. Knicks play the Bulls on Friday. Hopefully, they handle Josh Giddey and we get the W. All right, that is our show again. Thanks, everybody. Peace.